Hi, this is Toxic J. Welcome to my channel. You know, the Matrix Resurrection is already released. I don't know how you feel about it, but I created the iconic subway scenes in Blender and Fusion from Blackmagic. This video would just be an explain of my workflow, so it won't go step by step, no one telling you exactly how to do it. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing you see here is a software called PREV. It's a totally free software and designed for just storing images for you. Mostly you will be just zooming and scaling the photos. Nothing fancy. But it helps and that's enough, right? The whole idea is to collect images and reference for the project and decide the angles for the station. So let's know the project here. So here we are. The angles for the project should be kind of overview of the whole scene, seeing the big pictures of location, scales of the objects. So I found this photo in the internet. So as you can see, the camera is in the end of the station. We don't know how the end of the station look like, but luckily all the free Matrix movie is now on Netflix, so I open the movie and start taking screenshots. So this is the complement angle I chose. These two angles pretty much cover the whole scenes. So I start looking at the details of the station. Some not so important things that exist in the tunnel, exist in the station, like the vending machine here, the electric box, or the platform number plate, I think. And I also found that there is a video in YouTube about making of the subway scenes. And by comparing the videos and the movie, you can see that the scenes is rendered in a more greenish color tone in Compositing to imply that Neo is in the Matrix right now. So I decided to follow the same procedure but not making shaders with greenish color tone. And by doing that, we will have more flexibility to change in the later stage. Next, I will put two opposite angles into a free software called F-Spy. It was called Blend before, and it's a software for camera matching with a Blender add-on. I'll put the link in the description. So here I load the image and start matching the axes with the pillars and the dividers on the ceilings. Matching the axes will help the software to calculate the vanishing point of the image. To be honest, it's unlikely that you will get the vanishing point correctly in the first time, especially with the scenes with these scales or a greater scale. Any misplace of the access point will result in great distortion to the scenes, and luckily it's not for construction, so we don't need to be exactly accurate. So if you can see now, it's on the second image, right? Here we will face our first challenge. As we match the axes in the image where Leo's and Agent Smith is facing each other, we can see that the image is somehow distorted. The pillars are not exactly pointing upwards, so clearly we can't use them. I'm actually more reliant on the pillars on the right side as they seems relatively alright to me. But to be honest, if I'm going to recreate any scenes next time, this is something I have to check beforehand. And as for this project, I think it's okay and just bear with the deviation here. After we finish matching the axes, we can select box for the 3D guide and check if everything's alright. So after we finish matching the camera in F-Spy, we can now import it into Blender just like any other 3D stuff. Make sure you have the add-on turned on, and then you can select import F-Spy into project. And as you can see right now, I successfully import the first camera angle with a background. Then I split the field into 3 viewports so that I could have each angles could have one viewport to be responsible for, and I had the bottom viewport to have a general overview of my 3D stuff. So right now I'm selecting the local camera for my viewports. And if you select the vanishing point axis correctly in F-Spy, you will see that the camera is facing each other, which is good. But here's the tricky part. The cameras are not actually put in the right place. So we need a reference for us to match the cameras in Blender. So as you can see now, I created a cube of 1.85 meters tall, which is the Keanu Reeves height according to Google. The reason I'm doing this is that even we import the camera in Blender and set everything correctly in F-Spy, we don't know the set location of everything. We need a reference for us to deduce where the ground is, and in this case is the platform. Once I match the cube with Keanu Reeves, we can know where the ground is, right? Then we can start creating other objects. Just like what you can see here, I created a phone booth, but actually you can skip that part because we are just creating reference for matching the cameras right now. But that's alright, we still need to create it later on. So right now we have the pillar that exists in both cameras. Then what I would like to do is to put an array modifier, because we all know that there must be some errors or deviation of the pillars that we made. It's not exactly accurate, and we see that there is lots of pillars in the station actually. So I assume that the distance between the pillars are the same. That's why I use an array modifier to create the other pillars, the place that I need to fine tune in Blender. And after we all done the fine tuning, and we can check the pillars, how the pillars looks in this second camera angle. And as you can see, it's definitely not correct because the camera can be this far away behind you. So we need to adjust the camera's position with the reference pillar that we just made. So the camera is aligned and we finally finished the setup of our project. It's time for us to block the holes in and add the details afterward. It's nothing much to talk about in this part. Just keep creating meshes, extruding, adding loop cuts, and of course marking seam, etc, etc. Anyway, you know the drill. Most texture used in this sense is procedural texture. Usually to create a realistic sense, skin texture is the best choice for you. It is much quicker and realistic. It saves you tons, and I mean tons, of effort. But this time I use procedural texture because on one hand I don't have to pay for it, and on the other hand I can change it anytime. But the most important reason for me is that I take it as an exercise for me to have a better understanding about the shading and looks. It's not a freelance job or anything with a deadline. I don't need to rush doing everything. However, using procedural texture will require a much longer time and more resources for rendering. We'll see that later. But don't worry, we'll bake the procedural texture and the problem will be solved. So here I opened the new Blender file for my procedural textures. That's because I want to keep everything organized and I want the procedural texture in this project to be reused in the future. And after I finish the shader, I'll mark them as assets. It's a new feature added to Blender in 3.0 version. It makes Blender a little bit like the UI of Unity or other game engines. Everything we mark as an asset can be reusable in other Blender file as long as you put the path in the Blender setting. So as you make more and more projects, the more assets you will be available in the library. So I really suggest you guys do the same. So now the texture are created, time to put them back into the scene and see the results. So we can finally have a look on the scenes. It's great and almost done, but it's dull and unreal. It's like it's missing something and too empty. And if we look at the reference, we can see the flyers all over the ground, and there is an advertisement board in the tunnel. So here we are going to do some Ian Hilbert style. We go search and download some images for flyers or newspaper. Create at least 7 planes for them so that no one is going to notice they are just repeating stuff. Make them cloth and emit from the gravity. Make a sphere and enable collision. Animate the scales of the sphere by shrinking it, and you can see the flies are now folded and looks like a real garbage. But by the way, remember to smooth it too. You don't need to make it so realistic because they are not the focus of the project. And for the gravity on the walls, I created another UV map named Gravity Map and start texture painting on a new image. Combine them, you will have a more alive wall. Last but not least, the rule for every project. If you want something looks realistic, remember to bevel the edges because there's no edges in world that is perfectly sharp. Here I use a shader to do it, but you can do it in different other method. Bevel in edit mode or modifier or however you like. So everything is alright. The meshes are good, the textures are good, and the lightings are good. So we just need to finalize it by baking the texture to reduce the render time. Because right now, if I render the whole scenes with the procedural texture, it's gonna take forever. And I don't know, maybe it can't render out with this computer. So it's just a boring process and take a lot of time. Just add an image texture look in the material you're going to bake. Select the fields and uncheck the direct and indirect lighting because we just want the original color. So after the texture is baked, and I still find the whole scene is not realistic enough. The texture I made still got a lot of improvement to be done. So here I use the shortcut, which is a dirt pass. I just download the texture of rough ceramic from the internet. It's not necessary to use the exactly same one with me. It's just dirt and it can be anything. There's no specific pattern. Just pick anyone you prefer. So I override the whole scene with the ceramic texture and render the image sequence for my later compositing. It should look like this. But to be honest, you don't have to render it separately. You can use RGB mix look to combine the dirt image with the shader you want, and you still got the same effect. But I just want to do it more industrial standard to give me more flexibility on fine-tuning in the compositing, which you are going to see in a moment. And to be honest, I kinda like this approach more. The render is finally finished, and now we should have the default clip and the dirt pass. We can start compositing it in the Fusion. It's actually quite simple. So first of all, put all the image sequence in the media pool and then drag it into the edit tab. Create a timeline for it. Then in the Fusion tab, we merge the two image sequence together. And then we change the applied mode to the overlaid. You can also change it to multiply, but it would make the whole image much darker, and you have to adjust it afterwards. So I will just stick with overlay. So it's actually quite similar to mix RGB look in Blender. And now you can see that why I decided to render the dirt pass separately but not including it in the shader. It's because we can adjust how much dirt is on the image by just playing the blend control in the inspector panel. You can see the effect immediately but not re-rendering the whole videos all again. So again, it gives us the flexibility. And then we all know that the scenes in Matrix is in a greenish color tone, right? So here we are going to add a color corrector look, and we just add a little bit greenish color here. Then we could also adjust the brightness with the gain and lift control, just playing with it a little bit. And then we can go to the color tab to see the whole result. If you're still not satisfied with the result like me, then you can adjust the luminance curve here a little bit. To brighten it or make it darker, it's your choice. And we complete the whole scenes. So the project is now complete, but I just want to talk about the improvement that could be made in this project. First of all, it would be the image that I used in camera matching. The fact that the image of the complement angle is distorted is causing me great trouble in matching the cameras. And I should have checked that image before I really using it. And the second thing is that I forgot to disable the lights and the glasses in rendering the third pass. So you can see that the light and the glass is full of dirt. And it's okay, but that's not the effect that I want. Actually, I can remove them with a motion tracker and a mask, but I'm too lazy to do it, so that's the final product. And the third is the third pass. As you can see, actually, the pattern is keep repeating in the same pattern every step of the stair. You may not notice in the final render, but it looks pretty weird to me. Maybe next time we'll add some variation in the third pass. So that's all for today's videos. Thanks for watching it all the way till the end. There are still tons of things for me to learn in Blender and 3D stuff. So if you have any advice for me, please feel free to drop it in the comment section. I will be really appreciate it. And if you have any questions regarding the project, I'm also more than happy to discuss it. Anyway, I'll start working on the next movie scene soon, and before the release of it, there will be some short videos in between. So that's it. Have a nice day and see you in the next video.